Florida man, the gift that keeps on giving. So many wacky news headlines, so little time. But if there's one thing that's certain, it's that we're gonna have a good time solving these twisted whodunits. In this requested sequel, our NRC students are yet again up to no good. Shocking, right? And I need your help figuring out who's responsible for these various scenarios. I've twisted some wacky real-world headlines into ones that fit the Twisted Wonderland universe, and I'll be providing 3 possible suspects for each scenario along with some fabricated backstory. It'll be your job to figure out which of the 3 did the deed, and after a bit of quiz-style thinking time, I'll reveal who I thought done it and why. Guess the culprits, the original headlines, or just listen along for the silliness. The choice is yours. But whatever you do, I hope you have fun. Oh, and while these scenarios are inspired by canon, they'll also all be fabricated, so spoilers for EN content will be light if they exist at all. Now then, let's dive into our very first headline. NRC student reprimanded for challenging campus ravens to all-out brawls. Campus staff were alerted to a disturbance on campus by the cawing of ravens. Upon approaching the scene, these professors were shocked to see that one student was sparring with a few of the birds, trying to hit them out of the air as they flew around him. The rest of the ravens were gathered around in a large circle, making a ruckus, cheering on the brawlers. After a moment of shock, the staff stopped the brawl and reprimanded the student along with the few ravens they were fighting. Our suspects in this case are Sebek, who was seen shouting at the scene, Jack, who had been questioning others about potential training, and Deuce, who had been caught fighting someone else earlier that day. Who done it? Unfortunately, Jack's need for training got him in trouble this time. He apparently wanted to improve his reflexes, but the training drills he had been running weren't cutting it. So, inspired by his hometown exploits and helping Ruggy retrieve one of Leona's necklaces that one time, Jack decided to ask the campus ravens for help. A few agreed to help out since they thought it would be funny, and a brawl ensued. Other ravens then gathered to watch the fight and cheer on their brethren, which in turn was what alerted the staff. Since the fight was consensual and a means of training rather than a scuffle of opinions, Jack and the involved ravens got let off with a warning and not any more serious punishments. Our next headline. Pajama-clad NRC student spends 4 hours shouting at people from the roof of the library. One evening, a few students reported seeing and hearing a suspicious individual on the roof of the library. This person was apparently shouting at passersby, but due to the distance, no one could make out exactly what they were saying. When staff investigated the claim, they found a student in their pajamas standing on the roof of the library. However, it was also discovered that they had a good reason to be there. Because of this reasoning, the student faced no repercussions. Our suspects in this case are Azul, who had taken off that day from the Mastro Lounge, Cater, who was seen nearby snapping away some pics from Magicam, and Rook, since he's known for climbing into strange places. Who done it? If you said Rook, then you'd be correct. It turns out that the Film Research Club was shooting a horror scene atop the library roof, and Rook was acting as their ghost. The shouting passersby heard was merely Rook performing his lines, but due to his costume pajamas and the distance at which he was being perceived, no one recognized him. When the incident was investigated, it was found that some of the signs the club had posted about the filming around the library had been blown away by the wind, leaving those passing by without any context for the scene. The wind was also responsible for prolonging the filming that evening, resulting in the 4-hour terror. But since everything was for a club activity and the paperwork had been filed properly, the club and Brooke were let off the hook. Our next headline is NRC student reprimanded for eating breakfast in the middle of school hallway. On an otherwise normal morning, staff noticed a higher influx of students in certain parts of the school. The hallways were becoming unusually packed, so a few members of the faculty decided to investigate. It didn't take them very long to find the cause of this strange foot traffic pattern, as one of the nearby hallways was completely empty aside from a singular student. This student was standing in the center of the hall, eating his breakfast right then and there, and staring menacingly at anyone who dared make eye contact, even the teachers themselves. Our suspects in this case are Floyd, who had woken up on the wrong side of the bed that morning, Apple, who had recently been gifted some apple pastries by his folks back home, and Leona, who was up early for once. Who done it? Could it really have been anyone other than Floyd? I don't think so. And the results of the investigation confirm it. Floyd was just not having it on this particular day, so he just stood in the middle of the hallway eating his breakfast. The glare he was sending all those passing by eventually stopped folks from passing by, which led to congestion in other parts of the school as well as many of the students being late for class. Floyd was reprimanded for not only blocking traffic, but for dirtying the hallway with his breakfast crumbs. Our next headline is NRC student saves peer from argument with 6-foot crocodile by blasting magical beam. Students were alarmed when during an otherwise regular day, a large magical beam cut through part of campus, miraculously only hitting one student who was wise enough to raise a barrier to protect themselves. The student responsible for the magical outburst claimed to be protecting someone else, but the student who was hit claims they weren't a danger in the slightest. Both students were reprimanded, and the issue has yet to occur again. Our suspects in this case are Grim, who was spotted near the scene with some singed fur, Ortho, who is known for shooting off magical beams, and Deuce, who was seen chatting with Sebek earlier that day. Who done it? It was Ortho. It had to be Ortho. And unfortunately, Sebek was not anticipating his lecturing of Edea to turn into a life or death brawl. Now, Ortho isn't unreasonable and doesn't fire off beams at anyone and everyone who badmouths his brother, but Edea looked pained by what Sebek was saying, and Sebek refused to back down, so Ortho had no choice but to leap into action. The actual specifics of the conversation are unknown, as everyone present had a vastly different story, and Ortho's recording only covered the back half of the conversation, so there's no way to definitively prove the series of escalating events. But at the end of the day, no one met death, and there haven't been any further issues between these freshmen. Our next headline is NRC student tries to bring 4-foot emotional support pillow to class. One afternoon, while lecturing their class, a professor noticed one of the students had been replaced by a large pillow. Upon further inspection, it was discovered that a student was napping behind this large 4-foot pillow. The professor attempted to wake the student and demanded that they hand over the pillow until the end of class and then never bring the pillow back again. The student claimed that the pillow was their emotional support and therefore they needed it to remain calm in class. Our suspects in this case are Silver, who is notorious for falling asleep in class, Edea, who is notorious for needing emotional support, and Leona, who is just a overall sleepy boy. Who done it? Well, Silver can't be woken up, and Edea seldom attends class in person, so this couldn't have been anyone else but Leona. The lion claimed that after his overblot, he required emotional support, and the only suitable creature to fill this role was not a creature at all. It was a pillow. While the first part of his excuse may be true, the pillow part was not doctor approved, and the professors collectively agreed that it was a hindrance to Leona's education since the lion would opt to nap instead of listen. So after a bit of back and forth, the lazy lion finally relented and the pillow was returned to Savannah Claw. The emotional support pillow has not appeared in class again as of this recording. Our next headline is NRC student climbed statue of 7 to escape tarantula. Early in the morning, before classes began, one of the precious statues of the 7 was defaced, again, by having a piece of it broken off. The suspect claimed that the statue was damaged during their daring escape from a tarantula. However, no trace of the arachnid could be found at the scene. Luckily, a member of staff was able to magically reattach the broken piece, so the student was only reprimanded and not charged with the cost of repairing the statue themselves. Our suspects in this case are Grim, who was caught crying near Main Street shortly after the disturbance, Jamil, who was found passed out at the scene, and Kaleem, who was found fretting over a passed out Jamil. Who done it? Unfortunately for Jamil, this little arachnid snuck up on him and Kaleem while they were walking to class. While technically not a bug, having only seen it out of the corner of his eye, Jamil began to panic and immediately hopped up on the closest object, which just so happened to be a statue of the 7. Kaleem thought the affair was funny until Jamil began to sway and then subsequently pass out from the shock of seeing a giant, not quite a bug but close enough for horseshoes creature on the ground getting closer to him. In an attempt to steady himself on the platform, Jamil had knocked a delicate piece of the statue with his arm, which caused it to break off, falling to the ground alongside him as he fainted. The tarantula walked off into the sunset, never to be found again, while concerned onlookers whispered and staff was eventually notified of the event. Graham only got caught up in the affair because he was laughing so hard at the ordeal that he didn't think to run when the staff arrived. Our next headline is NRC student tries to leave Mastro Lounge with 127 thaw marks worth of lobster in comically large sack. One evening, a staff member of the Mastro Lounge noticed a figure hauling a sack away from the kitchen when they were coming back from their break. This figure tried to run off with their stolen goods, but the weight of their sack prevented them from fleeing too fast. Which wouldn't have mattered anyway because the manager on duty that evening, Floyd, was delighted to have the opportunity to chase them down. The culprit was frightened nearly to death by the ensuing game of cat and mouse, but they were eventually caught and their stolen goods returned to the lounge. Our suspects in this case are Grim, who was seen sharing a table with Ace that night, Ruggy, who was working a shift that evening, and Ace, who was seen at the same table with Grim. Who done it? One might assume that after the Steven incident, Grim would have learned not to steal from Azul. But he didn't. Although this wasn't all his fault this time, or so he claimed, because Ace apparently had dared Grim to go and grab a lobster from the lounge without getting caught. This story was refuted by Ace, and Ace also pointed out the fact that Grim was taking almost all of the lobsters instead of one, as supporting evidence that this event was the dire beast's idea and his alone. Azul was of course concerned about the state of the returned merchandise, and unfortunately a few of the lobsters were deemed unsellable, while a few others had been eaten by the gluttonous Grim during the chase to reduce the weight of his getaway sack. Due to the circumstances and the recovery of some of the lobsters, Azul and Grim have settled on dishwashing the debt away. Our next headline is NRC student accidentally steals 9,100 books one by one from the library. During the yearly inventory of the campus library, workers discovered that 9,100 books were missing from the collection. These books covered a variety of topics without too many similarities, except for one select series on architecture. The confused staff couldn't find records of who checked out most of the books. However, one student who was recruited to help look for them recognized one of the titles and was able to locate and recover the collection. Our suspects in this case are Deuce, who was hurriedly returning some overdue books, Malleus, who was trying to find a specific book that hadn't been returned, and Leona, who had been seen frequently napping in the library after temporarily being banned from the botanical garden. Who done it? It may surprise you to learn that Malleus Draconia is the one responsible for hoarding these library books, but he actually never meant to. You see, Malleus has a very hard time accurately tracking the passage of time, so sometimes he'd forget to return these library books because he assumed he just had more time on loan than he did. And he may have on a few occasions left these books in the Diasomnia common room when he was finished reading them. Some of the dorm members mistook these books for Malleus's possessions, so they turned a spare room into a mini library for the dragon. Over time, the collection grew to the point where the room became an actual library. It was only when Malleus went to the campus library to check out a book he had previously read that he realized he never returned it, and that in turn led to the realization that his retainers had never returned it either, which then led to the discovery of the Diasomnia dorm library. The books were returned to the confused campus library staff by the dorm, and all was forgiven. Our next headline is NRC student attacked during selfie with professor's cat. The peace of one lovely afternoon on campus was shattered when yelps of pain came from one of the hallways near the courtyard. Staff who rushed to the scene found a scratched up student and an angry, hissing Lucius. When questioned, the student claimed to just be taking a selfie when the cat attacked him. However, Lucius claimed that the student was trying to take a selfie with him without permission. The resulting attack by Lucius was deemed in self-defense, and the student was given a warning not to take photos of others without their consent. Our suspects in this case are Ruggy, who had been seen brushing Lucius earlier that day, Edia, who had been seen snapping some photos of Lucius, and Cater, who is always seen snapping photos. Who done it? While all three of our suspects were seen around Lucius that day, only two were taking photos. And of the two, only one person was bold enough to get within striking distance, and that person was Cater. Edia had been taking pictures of the cat, but he had been doing so sneakily and from a distance, much to Lucius's annoyance since he was not consulted for the photo shoot. Once Edia left, Lucius thought they could relax for a bit, but they were wrong, and a wild Cater appeared. Due to already being annoyed, Lucius was not having it with Cater when he came around asking for a selfie and declined the photo. In an attempt to still get his cute cat pic, Cater tried to take a selfie at a bit of a distance, but Lucius clocked him and came running. The result was still a viral pic, but for all the wrong reasons. Instead of a cute fluffy kitty, Lucius was caught lunging at him, teeth and claws bared. Cater only sustained minor injuries and was given a warning by Professor Train to respect the boundaries of his beloved cat in the future. Our last headline: NRC student reprimanded after throwing a crocodile through a classroom window. One day, during flight class, Sebek was practicing his drills in peace when a wallet-sized picture of Malleus fell from his pocket. By the time he noticed, the precious picture had nearly hit the ground. As Sebek dived to catch it before the earth could soil it, he was somehow, magically, forced through a classroom window, shattering the glass, tumbling inside, and disturbing the class itself. At first, staff assumed that Sebek was responsible for the incident, but after inspecting the scene, it became clear someone else had pushed him. But who? Our suspects in this case are Deuce, who was walking with some other freshmen in the courtyard where Sebek was plummeting, Apple, who was also one of the freshmen walking with Deuce, and Ace, who was also in that grouping. Who done it? bet you never would have guessed an honor student would throw a fellow student through a window. But Deuce swears he had a good reason. Deuce was passing by the courtyard that Sebek was flying over, and he saw Sebek nosedive towards the ground. Believing his fellow freshman to be in trouble and unable to control his broom, quick-thinking Deuce decided to save him in the most unfortunately disruptive way possible. Panicking, Deuce used wind magic to push Sebek into a classroom so that he wouldn't crash into the ground, only realizing afterwards that he could have just used a feather fall spell. Because Deuce's intentions were honest but misguided, he was let off with a very stern warning, having to clean up the classroom and magically restore the windows as punishment. Sebek, though angry, was happy to recover his wallet photo, which was found in the courtyard unharmed with only a few specks of dirt on it. And that's all our headlines for today. Did you enjoy these silly little mysteries? Did you get all of them right, wrong, or a mix of both? Please let me know your thoughts down below, and while you're there, consider telling me if you like this content and want more videos like it. If comments aren't your thing, you could always like or subscribe instead. And as always, I just have to remind you that you're amazing, and I hope you have a wonderful day.